I want to jump into the story about UFOs because I know you're an enthusiast.
Right.
Yeah, so we have this story that has actually been going around for a little bit. We've talked about it quite a bit. Pictures and videos show unidentified flying objects moving above U.S. Navy warships. This story was updated just recently the other day, and the reason it's significant, military, U.S. naval ships, national security installations are being spied on, essentially. Mm-hmm. Something is flying above them, surveilling them, perhaps. They're described as what, Tic Tacs?
Well, they're various forms. Tic Tacs, triangles, spheres encased in cubes.
And all over the place, you're saying?
Yeah, all over. I mean, the ones that we're looking at that have hit the news in recent years.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Spheres encased in cubes?
Yeah, that was the 2015 2015 Theodore Roosevelt carrier strike group. One of the pilots described it looked like a sphere in case nearly hit him.
Whoa.
And so there are various forms.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and this stuff is not. I mean, this is what's. I do have a kind of eccentric sort of British sense of humor. Whatever. I'm relatively young. As a journalist, I tell people I'm covering this issue because I feel my sourcing on it is very good. It's complementary to kind of writing about Russian and Chinese military activities, research and development. It would be a very bad idea for me to lean into this subject as I have if I wasn't very, very confident, because credibility-wise, you become, a Looney Tune, right?
Yeah.
So it is happening. It's happening near the Navy, predominantly in their workup areas off the east and west coast. The Navy assesses that at least a significant part of the reason it is happening near the carriers and the submarines is because of the nuclear reactors and weapons in some case on those, that these things are attracted to it. That is top secret because the US does not want China and Russia to figure out how that detection capability comes about.
Wow.
Because if they did figure that out, they could destroy our nuclear deterrent forces. Yeah.
So wait, you're saying that these weird flying things somehow can detect our nuclear capabilities?
Yes.
And we don't want Russia and China to know how to detect our nuclear capabilities.
And that's classified, that assessment, but it's
not Russia and China doing this?
No, it's not. It's a high. We up. Tim McMillan, who really I think is probably the top journalist on this, at least from the US point of view in the world. Debrief, both him and myself, have said, it's 99% sure we are, not simply because of, as we understand it, what China and Russia have in development. And they do have, for example, on hypersonic glide vehicles, which are going to be the new form of delivering nuclear weapons. The Russians are, at least in delivered platforms that are deployed, more advanced than the United States. That's going to change soon. But that's their top end stuff. This stuff is going hypersonic, but from stop to start, no jet fuel.
No sonic boom.
No sonic boom in some cases. Yeah, well, no sonic boom in most cases. The propulsion vectors, the behavior patterns. So, the top lines, intelligently controlled machines because of how they interact, happening since the end of the Second World War. And again, this is just focusing on credible sources, not, and I think a lot of these witnesses are probably telling the truth, but you want to go with police officers, people who have a lot to lose by saying, I saw this, or radar data platforms. Intelligent and controlled machines capable trans-medium travel, underwater, space, through the air. And again, since the end of the Second World War. Really,
we had Marco Rubio, I think recently he said that it's a serious threat we should talk about because we don't know who this is and they're flying over our national security.
Right, and he talks about strategic import. He's talking about the nuclear connection there.
Right.
And Marco Rubio also wants to run president again in the future. He's the chair of the Senate, or actually now the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee. He knows. He's seen that. He knows this is really it's not China, Russia, or us. Something's going on. I'm going to keep pushing this subject because it's going to be good for my political career, and I think he thinks the public should know more.
Is it aliens?
I think it probably is, yes.
You think it's probably aliens?
I think it is probably alien. I'm highly confident it is either aliens or extra-dimensional or some
Dude,
secret.
We're getting crazy.
No, and hey, listen, that's a big thing to say, right?
Yeah.
I think that will be borne out in our lifetimes that it really is something else. Because if you, again, it's the Sherlock Holmes thing, right? Or, you eliminate the impossible, all you're left with, it is not US, China, Russia, or Elon Musk. and it's machinery and it's intelligently controlled. I don't know if there are people in it or whatever.
And it's been happening since the Second World War.
Yeah,
So that's
Manhattan Project, right? People
Right.
Google Los Alamos, little green orbs,
interdimensional, dude. That's freaky.
Extra dimensional, whatever.
Extra dimensional.
I don't know. And then that is the sort of generous point that it's something other, right?
Yeah.
But that's the basic. That's why Marco Rubio is leaning into this, because they know it's not the Russians and Chinese, and they don't. And they,
There's a conspiracy theory that once we actually dropped the nukes, we basically sent a signal.
Right.
So those who could detect nuclear capabilities were like, what are these creatures doing? This is insane.
High level of intellect,
Right.
technical proficiency,
And they understand how devastating these weapons can be. And then there's other conspiracies that they've shut off our nuclear capabilities in the past. You've heard those stories?
Yeah, Robert Hastings, who's become a friend of mine, he's the guy who wrote the kind of Bible on that, UFOs and Nukes. Not a terribly original title, but the sourcing is excellent. And yes, they have, and they've done it to the Russians. What's interesting as well is the Russians and Chinese have these experiences still, nuclear platform sites, and the Russians, being Russians in the Cold War, tried to shoot these things down a couple of times, and the pilots ended up dying.
Whoa,
yeah. So there's a part, I don't know more than that. That was actually came out in a declassified British military report. I've heard it from at least one other source. Very good. So there's a lot more to this subject.
You ever see Stranger Things?
No.
Are you familiar with the show?
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it's like there's the Upside Down.
Right.
When I think about extra dimensional, there's one thing I've often wondered. We have invisible means of data transmission.
Right.
We use electromagnetic waves of various frequencies to send signals to other devices. And I often wondered, if what is invisible to us is actually a physical phenomenon in another dimension of sorts that we can't perceive. And so we are actually just completely ignorant of what we're doing, maybe on the other side. So as we broadcast a signal, like a 5 gigahertz signal to us, nothing happens. We don't see anything. It's non-ionizing radiation. But then maybe in this another dimension or the Upside Down or whatever, it's actually like ripples, like pushing through water, having a very serious impact on something that might be on the other side.
Yeah.
So real quick, just when we talk about extra dimensional, I wonder if then the reason they're detecting the nuclear reactors and energy is because it's having a physical reaction in their dimension or whatever.
Right. Maybe. And we don't know.
It's a wild, crazy thought. To be honest, I have no idea.
There is, and you can go back in time. You look at, there was a situation with one of the, very top Roman generals. I think finding the Thracians, where the testimony of, I forget the Roman historian, and it's actually on UFO Sightings, Wikipedia page, but I went and backtracked. The sourcing is legitimate, describing what looks like a UFO coming in between two armies. The behavior patterns of some of these things are really interesting, and where they appear. There's a school connection point.
Schools?
School in Zimbabwe, Ariel School in 1994, Zimbabwe. All the kids, 8-year-old, 9-year-old kids describing it. Some of them saying they saw a being. Melbourne, 1967. There's one in Miami. Why are they appearing at schools sometimes? Those are both saucer type. There's a lot to this. It's easy to go down the rabbit hole, but something very significant is going on.
I'll tell you something crazy. Do you know about the O'Hare Airport sighting?
Yeah, in 2006, yeah.
It was 2006, are you sure?
Pretty confident.
2006?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I believe
so I worked at O'Hare until 2006, and I had friends who worked there. I worked in the in the terminal, not the terminal. This was in the United. It was above the
above
United,
the gate, right?
So where I worked was just next to the United Terminal. So I worked for American Eagle Airlines, which is next to American Airlines, and so a bunch of the guys that I had quit, and then this happened. I think maybe 5 or 6 months after. So I had friends who were still there, and when this happened, I was immediately like, "Yo, what happened? What did you see?" And a bunch of them said they saw it. They said that some object came down through the clouds or was seen floating in the sky for a minute or two, and then shot straight up and punched a hole in the clouds.
Right.
And they were told it was a weather phenomenon.
Yeah.
Now here's where it gets crazy. One of my friends said they were driving to work at the time, or they were driving on Mannheim Road, which is just outside of O'Hare. It's been a long time, mind you. It's this is 15 years. They were on Mannheim Road, which is one of the major roads that goes up just next to O'Hare Airport. And they said when this thing came down, people stopped their cars and got out and were staring up at it. And I was told that people were taking pictures. Early camera phones existed at the time. And so I was like, where's all those photos at? Now, there was one photo that got released. The pilot was in the plane and he turned and took, and this is grainy, crappy photo. But from what I heard, and maybe it's just exaggerations and hearsay and it was wrong, I had someone tell me straight up they saw people taking pictures of it. Right. Where'd those pictures go?
No,
we didn't have the internet. We didn't have Facebook the way we do. So maybe it's just sitting on these old, flip phones from 2006 that never got put online.
I've heard the same thing. Interesting that the descriptions there were a saucer. It tends to be now tic-tacs, triangles, whether that's multiple or originating vectors, right? Multiple things. But it's a very good point. I also think, though, people ask, why do we not have more photos now, right? With iPhones, such good quality, whatever phone you have. I think that is going to be these things when they're seen are either willing to be seen or want to be seen.
There are photos of them.
But there aren't as many as we might expect.
I think the issue is, let me put it this way. I once looked up at the sky and the moon looked amazing. And I was just looking at the corona and the color. It was like a blood moon with this massive corona, and it was a full moon. And I was like, wow, let me take a picture of this. I put my camera at it, and it's a white dot on the screen. And I'm like, I cannot capture this moment on a phone.
Right.
I have seen weird things in the sky before that look like there's a tail coming off, and I'm like, was that a comet or a meteorite? And I put my camera at it, and you lose all the definition, and all it is a red dot with a grainy blue background. And I'm like, damn, I can't take a picture of this. I think people overestimate the power of cell phone cameras with long range, low resolution photographs.
Right.
So if I guess people are expecting like the saucer to land in their backyard and then to get a higher resolution photo, they're not doing that. They've never done that.
So one thing though that hopefully you obviously mentioning Jeremy Corbell's photos. There was some other ones that I had that happened similar. Well, actually, slightly different time. One thing that myself and Tim McMillan reported on last December is in December 2019 or thereabouts. Now the pilots in the F-18s, right, from the carrier groups have their iPhones. One aircrew took a photo of a triangle, which we've seen David Marler's coming out the water.
Right.
And that photo, I have not seen it. I know it exists. Multiple sources. And when that photo comes out, I think that will be a really pretty pivotal moment because it will be from an air crew. There'll be chain of custody. And, when you see that thing and then when they match up the sensor data with it. Anyway.
These Jeremy Corbell photos, the ones we're talking about, the naval warships, they're white specks. You can't even see anything.
You see one of them looks like a pyramid. The Navy were tracking them, though. And they did identify them as unknown. It was talked about multiple days, multiple ships. And the Navy really has an incentive to not want to talk about this stuff. Susan Goff, who leads the press effort at the Pentagon, everything goes through her. I reached out to her today about actually kind of Jeremy Corbell stuff through NCIS, goes back to her. Very tightly controlled. I don't think it's so much that they're trying to conceal alien bodies in the basement. I think they really don't. They don't know how to handle the issue, and it keeps happening and it's escalating. So this is not going away. And again, journalistically, I think it will do a lot of favors for my career that I've lent into it.
You said it's 99% likely that it's not Russian, Chinese, or American. Where'd you get that number?
That's my assessment. But I think it's. I'm very confident that is the assessment shared by ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence, which leads the investigative effort.
I personally, I feel like it's more likely that the Navy's lying than that extraterrestrials are arrived, just mathematically, if a likelihood guess.
I think you have to trust your sources. You have to look at platforms that are in place. I mean, we're not just the thing that's interesting about these, and again, looking at the historic, certainly with the triangles, the way these things behave, non-jet propulsion, transmedium travel, hypersonic instantaneous acceleration, which would rip a human body apart, unless you have some kind of
inertial dampeners.
Exactly, a space-time bubble potentially, which might be the things on the side of the triangle. Maybe not, but I think probably is. And again, that's not me saying that.
The port and the starboard nacelles.
Right, but it is getting. I mean, it is. But the capabilities across the board, multiple points, right? That hypersonic, non-jet propulsion, transmedium. That stuff is so far. We don't have any of that.
Well, you could think it could be plasma, like a cloud of plasma being directed
but then
around by light.
we have debris.
Bro,
Surface plasma.
imagine-
We have
vibration.
debris, metallic debris.
imagine
Oh,
someone.
it could be a metamaterial, yeah.
Imagine someone in the 1800s trying to explain a jet engine, and they'd be trying to use their understanding of science to explain futuristic technology. They wouldn't be thinking about these combustion engines in the same way. Or more importantly, when we talk about electricity, and then you go back and try and explain it to someone in the pre-electricity, they're not going to understand the concept of how this works. And so they're going to try and use their perspective on science. You end up with ideas like the ether. You know what I mean? They can't conceptualize this stuff.
What debris did they find?
So the debris in terms of metamaterial, I don't know. I know the U.S. government has it. I've heard that from two extremely good sources, extremely good, verified, that it is from a crash location, identified something went down, recovered, and the material analysis of it. There's a lot of different elements of metamaterial that people say are from UFOs or UAPs. The US government stuff, there's, again, chain of custody from sighting, crash, whatever, that because of the metallurgy or the binding of the metals within it, it would be impossible to do with our understanding of manufacturing, and that it would require at least, one very good source told me, again, and these are government people, right? This is not this is not researchers who I think there are some great researchers, but I'm trying to be very careful here about being able to have a governmental link to what I'm saying, that you could not produce it were you not in a zero gravity environment. So space. And so this is something that, other people have talked about with, that they say, metal analysis. But, again, when you've got the radar returns, the ICBM satellites that in case China just decides to nuke us in the middle of the night, that we can track it. You've got this stuff coming into orbit. You've got the nuclear attack submarines catching it underwater at hundreds of knots. Got it in the air. You've got the pilots seeing it. You've got infrared. You have, just a gamut of sensor data matched up, at least in limited circumstances, to, metallurgical analysis. This is really something going on here. And again, it's better actually, though, to say, right, who the hell is Tom Rogan? The Marco Rubio, the people who are leaning into this. It's something is going on, and that's time will tell. I mean, I do that metallurgical analysis, right? That is very hard to, as someone told me, avoid the physics. Just kind of focus on. It's really interesting, and here's what we know. The seal has been broken now, though, right? And so it's going to.
It seems like there are no physics when it comes to the metal. Like, I have no evidence of metallurgy.
For you to see,
yeah,
and be able to, right?
And the government is known lying to us like weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't. Intelligence failure, could explain some of this, but again, when you have the cross section, I do appreciate the fact that it's, I'm saying, right, this is my reporting, but I could be a liar. And I could be being misled.
Just trying to sell a book.
I think Bob Lazar was misled.
No, I'm not writing, but yeah,
when he was told about Zeta Reticuli.
I don't believe Bob. I actually personally don't believe him.
I think
I don't believe him.
I think he saw the craft that they were working on, the drones, but then they told him
he said
they
he
were
saw
aliens.
a little green man.
Yeah, they might have had.
Oh, it was a puppet.
That guy has a track record
that
that you got to be. You've got to talk to people who have the credentials, and that's what I've tried to focus on.
With Lazar, it seems like he was working on a drone program, and that they told him it was aliens to throw, so that he didn't go and spew like the government's working on drones. Zeta Reticuli? It's nonsense. He went out and told everyone that, and now he looks like he's crazy.
Right.
Doesn't mean that they weren't working on a drone program. I mean, they raided Tesla's laboratory in the 20s.
I just think that guy lacks credibility.
Yeah,
he did work.
Sure, that's fine, but his story's changed, and I'm not interested in someone telling a story and being all smiley and confident about it, and then coming out 20, 30 years later be like, oh, actually that wasn't true, because back then it was sensational, got him on TV. Today no one believes it, so he takes that part out of his story. He said he saw a little green man,
and
then they took that out. it was a puppet. Shut up.
I would say as well
was.
that, I think my reporting will stand on the merits, but I would say a basic place to start, Robert Hastings, UFOs and Nukes, and David Marler, Triangle UFOs. Those are two very good, serious people who are just keeping it to eyewitnesses who have credibility and doing their due diligence.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.